Seems like Quant is not stopping. And what I mean by that is their effort and their sort of intent, right? It's not really about the price anyways, because that's uncontrollable, I think, when it comes to the case of Quant, at least from their team. I don't think they could do that. But I'm actually talking about what Quant is trying to do, especially in September, which is some of its team members are going to be attending something called Sibos, which is in Miami, this very massive event in which I think could actually allow for Quant to really put itself out there in a pretty impressive way, at least in terms of marketing. I'll give my rationale behind this in today's video, even though nothing I say is financial advice and I am not telling anyone to do anything. So again, we take a look at Quant. It's planning to attend Sibos, which is going to be in Miami in September. Now, why could this matter? Well, it's because originally we have to consider Sibos was referred to as, again, originally, as the Swift International Banking Operations Seminar. I already made a video about this before, but I felt like there was some details that I kind of missed, so I want to talk about why this could really, I think, matter a lot more than what meets the eye when it comes to Quant, again, attending this event. But besides that, we have to consider this is kind of this massive event that's organized by Swift. Again, ever heard of that? That's really massive, right? But we have to take a look at the previous sort of, I guess, events and what that has done when it comes to the numbers that it's, I guess, showcased. For instance, we'll take a look at the one that happened in 2023 in Toronto, Canada. There was over 9,000 participants, and that was pretty impressive, right? By the way, I have a lot of cousins who live in Calgary, but besides that point, I think it's pretty impressive. Calgary, of course, the place where Bret Hart is from, right? I believe. But yeah, the legend. However, besides that point, we take a look at in 2025, it was in Frankfurt. It was allegedly the largest ever. I've actually been to Frankfurt, Germany twice. But besides that, that event against Sibos in 2025, there was over 12,500 participants with over 700 speakers and over 280 sessions and with over 200 exhibitors, right? So that's a lot of exhibitions right there. Now, if we take a look at this in 2026, it's going to be in Miami. So we have to consider how much exposure Quant could have. Now, Quant, it's already been to some previous Siboses, I would say, before, right? But again, the numbers are still pretty impressive year by year in terms of the attendees for this event. So it's pretty impressive, and it kind of showcases how the event is still, I guess, relevant. So when it comes to Quant, some of its team members attending there, that could be so impressive, and Quant being at Sibos, that could be quite legendary, in my opinion. And I think this is a much more effective way in terms of what Quant is doing in terms of advertising, just because, some other projects out there that are going to revert to advertising through a celebrity or an athlete. But again, if we consider something like Sibos, the people who are attending that event anyways are already those who kind of care about, the global trade and finance space and all that anyways, right? So if Quant were to advertise, let's say in a pure random hypothetical through Justin Bieber or something like that, would it really be more effective? Or had they done something at Sibos? I think arguably Sibos would have been a lot more effective, right? In this pure hypothetical, of course. But besides that point, I think that when it comes to Quant, being at an event like Sibos, it kind of showcases that they do have a presence in the global trade and finance space, right? And I think sometimes people don't really consider this, but we're talking about a project here that has historically a partnership with something called Oracle. Ever heard of that? So again, when it comes to Quant, they're not playing around. And sometimes people don't really consider Quant as being this project that has an aspect of global trade and finance, but need to remind people, Quant has an aspect of ISO 20022. This is something that people oftentimes don't really talk about, but allegedly it is there when it comes to Quant. Now, what is the importance of ISO 20022? Now, let me just give an example. So, ISO 20022, that's currently being used by many institutions from all around this world for something called inter-organizational data exchange. And of course, a lot of these projects that are focused on the global trade and finance space, for example, Ripple, something like Stellar, guess what? They have an aspect of ISO 20022. So of course, naturally, if Quant has an aspect of that, it puts it in a different sort of category, right? Some other projects out there say that they're focused on the global trade and finance space, but they don't really have an aspect of ISO 20022. So it kind of contradicts their sort of focus, it seems like. But when it comes to Quant, it has an aspect of ISO 20022. That is oftentimes what people even focus on anyways when a project says that they're focused on global trade and finance. But Quant, again, it's focused on impressive things like, again, we take a look at, for instance, the Quant network. There's the Overledger OS, there's the Overledger network. The Overledger OS allows something called a multi-chain application to be built, an application that is built on top of multiple blockchains instead of just one. So Quant has a pretty fantastic use case, arguably. And also, we take a look at Fusion Rollup, which recently had the mainnet launch. That was pretty impressive. And through that, of course, naturally, Quant is arguably focused on interoperability, right? Basically focused to a certain extent, arguably, I would maybe even say, trying to connect blockchains together. So Quant is really, I think, trying, which I don't think is a bad thing because, I mean, okay, sure, Quant is below $60, but what altcoin is doing so fantastic as of right now? Can't find too many. I mean, there are random microcaps that do this here and there, but sometimes we don't even know what it is, right? So I question what's really going on there. But when it comes to Quant, for instance, it's not a microcap. It's a pretty historically massive project. Like, for instance, it's currently ranked 66th in the world in terms of market cap within this space. So clearly in the top 70. Pretty difficult for something like this to just randomly go on an independent rally of its own. But what does that mean, though? It means that usually these projects that are in the top 100, it's pretty difficult for them to kind of just get forgotten about sometimes like that. So while they might not have those random movements like a microcap, especially during a market downturn, what they often showcase instead is historical presence. Like in a sense where they've shown historically that they've been there. They've been through the market downturns. And again, for a microcap that randomly made it, I wonder, are they going to be here in a couple of years? We really don't know. We see some projects come and go. When it comes to projects usually in the top 100, I mean, sure, they can come and go too, but it's typically not at the same rate as a microcap. And keep in mind, even Luna Classic, right? That still has a pretty massive following. And take a look at what happened to it historically. You know what I mean? So when it comes to Quant, I'm not saying that it ever was as popular as Luna, because it wasn't. But at the same time, this is a project that's historically showcased that it's been maintaining top 100 for quite a while now. And then also it showcased that it's been through multiple market downturns. This isn't the first time Quant has experienced a market downturn. So again, that's just the way to take a look at it. And keep in mind, bear markets, typically, I've never seen it become permanent ever when it comes to this space. I've seen projects come and go, but I've never seen this space have a permanent bear market ever. So if projects in the top 100 can still maintain their positioning heading into a change in market sentiment, sometimes kind of that's all they hypothetically kind of just have to do, right? Just survive through the market downturns. But the key is, of course, surviving. But again, when I take a look at in the case of something like Quant, you know, they've been through this multiple times. So yeah, I don't see why they would find this to be a big issue. But okay, let's take a look at it. Quant is around like $59 basically, slightly under that, but you know, it might change by the time I upload this video, but I'm just saying, let's just assume for simplicity's sake it's $60, right? Now, if we take a look at that right there, we'll see that just last year, we take a look at, let's say in July of 2025, it was at around $120. So we're slightly 2 times away from that. Slightly over 2 times away. Let me correct myself there. In which case, if it could just go back there, I get it. People like to say, well, who cares? That's really boring. And I've even mentioned this before, but need I remind people, if Quant were to go back to July of 2025 from where it is as of right now, that journey percentage-wise would be kind of basically the same as if Bitcoin returned back to its all-time high. So if Bitcoin were to go back to its all-time high, which is around 2 times away, people would consider it impressive. Why would it be any different had Quant returned back to July of last year and the journey is also around 2 times, you know? So I wouldn't find that to be like bad or boring, you know, I don't think about it that way. Because the way I take a look at it is that other market sectors out there, a movement like that could take years upon years. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take here because I don't know when the market could recover, but I'm just saying, I've seen Quant reach that before, and July of 2025 really wasn't even that good anyways when it comes to Quant. $120, by the way, when it comes to Quant, historically is quite bad, but just because we're so low compared to that, it's to the point that going back to 120 bucks is already considered quite impressive in the grand scheme of things. Because if we take a look at it, what is the all-time high when it comes to Quant? Around $428. So again, 120 bucks is like still around $300 lower than its all-time high. So it's not really even that impressive, but yet still we're around 2 times away from that. So that's just some food for thought, at least personally for me. That's why I'm still waiting, I'm still holding. Now, again, my mindset is for the long term anyways, so if nothing really happens in a week, couple months, or even a year or 2 years, like it's whatever to me. I'm still just waiting, but I'm just showcasing this to kind of talk about this is what Quant is doing. Again, they're planning to go to Cybos in Miami, this event, right? And then also on top of that, I'm just taking a look at the charts historically, and I'm seeing just last year, back in July, it was at around 120 bucks. And right now we're slightly below 60 bucks. So again, if we could just go back there, I'm going to Sizzler, the restaurant. But we'll wait and see when and if it could even do that. But again, it's reached that historically before, and it wasn't even that good anyways at that time. But yet still, we're on, again, 2 times lower than that. Or should I say 2 times away from that? Let me correct myself there. But yeah, besides that, I'll be sure to make more updates though when it comes to Quant. But long story short, I'm still documenting my journey. I'm still waiting, and that's kind of it. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very wonderful day. It's been Lee the Captain.